Welcome back, everybody, to the Marketing Rules podcast. And it's my pleasure to be joined by James Ellis, self-confessed employer branding nerd, who's we've just kind of discussed, and apparently there is a story behind that, which I am looking forward to.
Well, I mean,
James, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
It's great to be here. It's not much of a story. It's not filled with drama. It's not that kind of story. No, I realized a couple of years ago that if you Googled employer brand nerd, I was really appearing a lot in the search results. And I've just kind of said, okay, I guess that must be it. And it's to the point now where if you just type in employer brand nerd without any quotes, it will be 5, 6, or 7 of the first page results is me. But if you use quotes, I own the first 7 or 8 pages. It's just wall to wall me. So if it's one of those things where, you brand yourself as you are, right? You don't say, this guy, he is clearly the most attractive employer brander. No, that's not going to play. People are going to see that and say, maybe not. That's not how you want to go. Employer brand nerd, I can see that. I can see how that works. So that's you lean into what your strengths.
It sounds very much like we're getting onto personal branding, which is an entirely another different podcast.
They're very, very not well separated. There's not a lot of daylight between them.
No, I can. It's wafer thin between the two. But it's great. It's great to have you on board. And so, tell us a bit about your background, James. Tell us how you kind of got into employer branding and what kind of led up to that.
Yeah. So I was a digital strategist, for lack of a better term. I was adrift for a very long time. I was always the most digital person on the marketing team or the most marketing person on the digital team. So, which boils down to I made websites, I made Twitter accounts, right? I did a lot of stuff, and this is way back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, where it was like, ooh, he made a Twitter account. That's a full-time job. And now you're laughing because it's what? I do those with my elbows. That's easy to do. Pay $8. Alon does it for me. Anyway, and we've already descended into Alon jokes. So I did that for a long time. I did that kind of stuff for all sorts of different companies. And I realized that the kind of marketing I did was pretty straightforward. It's understand who your audience is and understand what they care about, understand how your product or service or whatever it is connects to that and put it in front of them. And if you can repeat it a couple of times, more power to you. And it's a straightforward process. It's not rocket science. The more I learn about rocket science, even rocket science isn't that much about rocket science. The more you watch TV, the more you learn. I got poached by the big recruiting marketing firm, TMP at the time, now Radency. And they said, you know a lot about digital marketing. And I said, well, thank you. Thank you very much. They said, and you are a bit of a job hopper. I went, okay, that's fair. And they said, yeah, actually, so the fact that you're a job hopper means you've probably been to a lot of jobs, you know a lot of recruiters, and you've been through this process. And yeah, so wait, you're saying job hopping is a skill? Why has no one told me this before? I had no idea that there was experience in job hopping. And they said, actually, for what we do, digital strategy and recruitment marketing, recruiting, glue them together. That's what we're looking for. And that's you. I said, okay, let's do that. And so I started being a digital strategist there. And it was very, very quick that I realized that they had this weird team, and this is getting real inside baseball, which was just, at the time, it was just called the social media team. And I went, no. You've got interns driving it. You've got kids who are just straight out of school doing it. They're not getting a lot of leadership. They're not getting a lot of guidance. I've done content marketing for years. Let me help you do that team. And over the course of time, they let me take it over. We changed the offering, but what it was, we called it inbound marketing at the time. But what I realized in hindsight was that it was employer brand activation. I was driving employer brand activation, and that kind of penny drop moment for me was like, wow, okay, I get what this is. And it was like all my experience of doing weird marketing for every sort of type of company and every sort of type of marketing in the world came to bear to employer branding. I went, there's so much to do here. There's so much interesting work here. And this is a place where marketing hasn't predefined the rules, right? You go to get your MBA, you're going to get your BA, you say, okay, these are the 4 Ps, or, depending on the year, maybe it's 5 Ps now. And everybody has a baseline understanding of what marketing is. And that you go to employer brand conference and no one seems to have, it's so scattershot. Now that sounds kind of pejorative. That sounds like I'm making fun of them. I'm not. employer branders come from recruiting, they come from university recruiting, they come from comms, they come from social, they come from marketing. They have such different backgrounds, and they're all like, I imagine it's like a UN situation where they're all trying to talk to each other, but they're using different languages and different ways of referencing. It's taking forever for us to kind of move forward because there's that lack of kind of framework and thought. So I came from, a marketing side. That doesn't make me better at this. It just makes me understand how marketing thinks and talks and works. So that's really how it is. And since then, I've done agency work and consulting work and in-house work and all this. So I love employer branding, and that is my kind of spiel. That is my shtick for employer, where I came from.
This is why we're going to get on really well, James, because I think we've got quite a similar background, in all honesty. No, this podcast isn't all about me. Sometimes the guests get a word in edgeways as well.
Well, that's good to hear.
I'm going to share a little story with you. Share a little story with you about digital strategy. And a similar trajectory to yours. The kind of mid noughties, I was in the process of applying for a new job and went and actually got this new job, and previously, at my previous employer, we'd had some jokes around. Oh, what would if you had a choice? What would you call yourself? What was the kind of like? And it was like, oh, I just think of something really kind of ridiculous. I went, I don't know, digital strategy manager or something ridiculous like that. Anyway, I got this new job, and the question was, well, this is a new role, new position in this company. What do you want to be called? I'll go for digital strategy manager. And so I was probably on a very similar trajectory to yourselves, there, James. Obviously, I went off into the marketing route, or the recruitment marketing route, and you've gone in the employer branding route.
Well,
similar disciplines,
yes,
that occasionally occasionally cross over, like streams from Ghostbusters, basically.
Yes, well, whipped it to more positive.
But yeah, so I tell you what. Yeah, exactly. But it's interesting. You kind of said that, you had all these people in that kind of group, and no one could really define employer branding, right? So have we moved on from that? And is there a definite definition now for what employer branding is, or what it isn't as well, which may be easier to answer?
That would be easier, wouldn't it? No, I think I won't say there's an official, because who exactly would bless and vet an official? Like, there's no pope of employer branding. I mean, Richard Mosley, maybe Simon Burroughs still alive, so maybe he could do it, but I don't know that there's really a governing body per se. What I'm seeing is that in general there is a centralization. Now, I used to joke that, for years, if you ask 10 employer branders how to define employer branding, you're going to get 12 answers. Now it's really, okay, it's gotten tighter. It is this idea that it's an individual perception of how people see your company and think of what must it be like to work there, based on all sorts of previous touch points and experiences. And that seems pretty simple. And then you start unpacking it and you go, oh, wow, there's depth here. I mean, this rabbit hole goes way, way down. This idea of individual perception means I like Nike, you hate Nike, we're both right. How is that possible? Right? I like this company, you hate this company. They have individual perceptions. And so as an employer brand owner or manager or director or whatever I am, I've got to not just say, this is the brand. I have to influence individuals, and those individuals have very different, not only perceptions, but their perceptions come from very honest places, right? You call customer service and customer service was bad to you and you no longer like that company. Valid, right? The CEO is in the news for doing something great. Now you like that company. Valid. But all those touch points impact how you perceive the company. And that includes recruiters and recruiting. If you got a really spammy recruiter who just says, I happened across your profile on LinkedIn and was really impressed by your experience, or whatever that spiel is, you're like, okay, spammer, whatever, they don't know me. But I've had great recruiting experiences where they seem to really get what I'm doing. They understand how what I do leads to help them, right? That's a recruiter I want to keep in my, in my connections, and say, I like what they're doing. Those two interactions dramatically impacted my sense of that brand. So that's the definition. The question is, what I like to argue with is that what is it for? Right? This idea that employer branding is...
Well, that was going to be my next question, James, right? What's the goal of this, right? What is it you're trying to do? Because, you can brand a company to influence people to buy your services, to buy your product. With employer branding, actually, you don't want everybody to work for your business. You want the people you want to work for your business.
Exactly.
Right? That's how I would, that would be my kind of start on it. So, but what is the point? What is the point?
Yeah, I mean, employer brand really works in this level of quality, not quantity. And when I say that, most marketers get real mad at me real fast because they think I'm suggesting that their work isn't quality. I'm like, no, you have qualified leads and you have a threshold. But if I gave you 1,000 qualified leads and you converted everyone to sales, enjoy your bonus check, right? Enjoy the employee of the month picture on the wall there. If you're a recruiter and you get
Mhm.
1,000 qualified leads and you offer them all a job, you're getting fired. That's not how it works, right? It's just a different way of being. And I like that. I think that's really interesting because that fundamental change in how marketing thinks allows us to say, okay, we can steal tools and ideas and thinking from marketing, but we have to rethink them in this moment of quality over quantity. And I think that leads to this idea that the purpose of employer branding, what it's trying to do, is create this amazing, almost alchemical, alchemical kind of like magical moment of it's an intersection between the company, the job, and the person. That there is a perfect match that lives in that Venn diagram, smack dab in the middle. And that is what employer brand is trying to make happen every single time. Is that possible? Of course not. Is it striving for that? It should. My bigger beef with the industry is that it treats employer brand like just drive applicants. It's top of the funnel, more. It's classical marketing, but without really embracing the differences that recruiting and the reason we have recruiting. And so I think if you say, and if you get a little crazy with it, if you understand that employer branding is really trying to make these matches, what recruiting or what employer brand is trying to do is radically invent recruiting from the ground up, right? Recruiting is still in
Mhm.
a lot of ways thinking top of the funnel and thinking fill the ATS and just generate, it's bigger haystacks equals more needles, which is not how needles get made. I hope everyone knows that. But that's how they've been trained for 50, 60, 100 years. So they keep maintaining it. Employer branding is there to say, look, no one actually likes the hiring process as it is. The recruiters don't like it. The hiring managers don't like it. The candidates don't like it. HR doesn't like it. Legal's always unthrilled. No one likes this process. Employer branding is the lever by which we say, what should it be? How do we think of it? How do we stop by post and pray and spray and pray and post everything to job boards and collect applications and applicants as fast as we can and think, gosh, I've got this one job. There's someone out there who's perfect for it. Not only are they perfect for it, once they understand what this job is, this will radically change their life in incredibly positive ways, in profound ways that I can't even predict. How do I connect those dots? That's what recruiting
Mhm.
should be. It shouldn't feel like a cattle call. It should feel like matchmaking. And that's really what employer branding should be leading us all towards.
Um, I mean that is one of the kind of best definitions I've heard of kind of employer branding. So thank you for that. But I would expect nothing less. And but a lot of people listen to this podcast. They will be in charge of both, right? So a
Yes.
lot of the kind of listeners are, they're in recruitment agencies or in HR or something, and they will have responsibility for actual marketing because they're in a smaller business
Mhm.
and employer branding, right? So having that kind of delineation, is that, between the marketing and employer branding, is that sometimes a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Should there be a delineation? They obviously, I mean, this is me thinking, they obviously have an interaction with each other because, like the examples you mentioned, that if the CEO is on online or in the news and it's good, bad, indifferent, that can inflect on the rest of the brand, which in turn reflects on, do I want to work for that business?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So how does that kind of interactions work when it's a smaller team? It's just one or two people that's managing everything.
Yeah, and I always joke that employer branders are crazy because the job is to manage an employer brand, and there's every single piece of a company impacts the employer brand. And yet the employer brand manager has exactly zero power to influence and change all those things that impact the employer brand. So again, only crazy people do this job. To your point, because it doesn't impact every part of the company, yeah, it should have a great relationship with marketing. Should it live with marketing? Sometimes. I think it makes perfect sense. And I think that if you want to get employer branders to all riled up, you say employer branding should always live in a certain function. And that's the best and that's the right answer as if it's the holy truth or whatever. And you're like, nah, that'll get everybody would be really mad about that. I'm a big believer that because employer brand kind of connects all the dots, it's the connective tissue. It doesn't have to live anywhere in particular. It lives in places purely for politics and convenience. If you've got a strong marketing team who loves employer brand, it should absolutely live in marketing. If you've got a TA team who understands the value of what it's doing, it should absolutely live in TA. It should live under the person who's willing to go to bat for it and support it and drive it beyond that. Because 2 weeks after you start that job, you may live in marketing, but you're going to make friends in TA and every hiring manager and every in leadership and all comms and legal and HR and. It's great to have a starting point where I've got someone who supports me, and I've got someone who can help kind of bang that drum with me and get people who aren't quite bought into this idea yet to say, this is a worthy endeavor. This is worth at least listening to this person talk about how they can help you hire better, how we can use the customer service team to hire better, how we can use the products we're building as a means of attracting more talent. How do we use all this stuff? So yes, it can absolutely live in marketing. Yes, it should be very closely tied to marketing. Does it have to live in marketing? I don't like to get into that dogmatic kind of approach.
Um, and okay, so let's take it. So that let's assume that it's living in marketing. Can you be a marketeer and an employer brander all at the same time? Because again, a lot of people listening to this are, they're going to have to wear many hats. A lot
Yeah,
of the marketeers listen to this are from smaller businesses, and employer branding is everywhere at the minute, right? Everything is pinless. And because whatever and the problem, marketeers will be told by people right at the top, we need to kind of have more hires. You need to get involved with this. You need to be kind of making sure that we look great online, and it falls on their lap,
yeah.
right? So can they wear both hats?
They can. They absolutely can. I think it's an interesting needle to thread, because there will be times in which you absolutely have to take the marketer hat off and the employer brand hat on and have a delineation. But that's baseline thinking. That gets you kind of to a foundational level of, okay, what is our reason people want to work here? How are we communicating on our career site, our LinkedIn, our Glassdoor, our blah, 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 right? Standard marketing, just set your foundation of how are we communicating to the world. The marketer should then say, gosh, the reason why people buy our products and the reason why people apply here to work here, they shouldn't be that different, right? They shouldn't be like two different companies who've never met, right? They should be two strangers. They really should feel integrated. And what great companies do is they understand that their employer brand and their consumer brand, and honestly, their investor brand, their corporate brand, et cetera, it's just one brand. And when I say that, people go, okay, but I'm doing this and I get that. Think of your brand as like a lens. Think of it as like a crystal, right? And you, as the marketer, are seeing through that crystal, through that lens to talk to consumers or prospects. The employer brander is seeing through the exact same crystal to look at their prospects and candidates. Investor relations are looking through the lens to talk to their institutional investors, et cetera, et cetera. It's the same company. If you do it right, consumer marketing makes employer branding better. I mean, now there's no one who will argue with a higher stock price increase makes it easier to hire, right? That's just grease for the machine, right? That's super easy. At the same time, when institutional investors look at a company and they make their evaluations, they look at all sorts of employer branding data. They look at attrition. They look at who's leaving. They look at who's being hired. They look at Glassdoor scores. They look at, how many jobs are open right now? How are they describing that? That influences their reason. Do I invest in this company long term? Same with consumer marketing, right? If you've got a great product, people want to be in it. Let's be fair. Google did no employer branding for the first 25 years of its existence, and yet they had great hires. Why? Product. Their product was a halo effect to their reason why people showed up. It can go the other way, right? There are plenty of examples, happy to give them, in which a company kind of hits that PR crisis mode and they say, oh, our CEO is a little racist. Got to get rid of him. What do you do then? What do you do then? Well, you bring in the person who works day to day and say, meet the people who actually work here, not a racist bone in their body. Aren't they nice? Aren't they sweet? Don't you want to buy from them? So all those parts of them, they're very interactive. They should support one another. No, it's like going to the gym. You don't just have that one strong muscle and the rest of you is weak. You have to make your whole body strong to really make anything strong. So that kind of integrated marketing and integrated brand thinking is where you want to be. Now, to be fair, that's not every day. That's not most companies. That's kind of like what I think of as platonic ideal. Like I can think of like Delta does that. Spotify sort of does it. There's plenty of companies that try to do it or are aspiring to that or leaning towards that. And it's the top of maturity model, but that's really where you want to take it. And if you have someone who's doing marketing and employer branding, you got yourself a kind of a cheat code to get you there, where you can say, look, I'm always thinking about this brand. I'm just thinking about it from two different angles. It might as well stay the same brand, and allow that kind of constraint to actually be a strength and say, oh, I can think about how I can put marketing messages in my job postings or in my LinkedIn postings that are for candidates, but we all know that they are future buyers. They are going to influence whether someone buys a product from us. Vice versa, right? You should put consumer messages out there that showcase how wonderful the people are and how they are the ones building or managing this product. They should integrate.
Well, that's some great tips, right? And so that brings me on to kind of my next question is again, just kind of focusing on the smaller businesses that might want to kind of consider this. You know, where do you start? Right? You know, I mean, there are businesses out here that they're small businesses, SME businesses, struggling to hire, and one of the strings in their bow is building themselves an employer brand. No matter how big they are in their industry, I mean, they can still make an impact, right? So they've decided to go on this journey. What happens now?
Yeah, I think the mistake is for small businesses to treat employer branding as this, oh, that's kind of cool. That's interesting. And they poke at it a little bit like, oh, what does it do? Like everybody who the first time you heard about chat GPT, you logged and you went, I'm going to ask it a question. Oh, wow, that's crazy. And then you walk away. Like you treat it very much arm's length. Small businesses are probably positioned to make the most impact from their employer brand. Like imagine if you're a 50-person company, the 51st employee makes a lot more of a difference to the company than at a Meta or a Google where the 127,000th person who gets hired is not going to make the same kind of impact. It's just the people you hire matter. And the way we've been hiring has been, do you meet some skill sets? Great. The boss likes you, come on in. Employer brand says if you're really trying to make that match between company, role, and person, you're saying, not only do I see how you're going to be successful in this role, I see how you align with our values. I see how you're going to push us to be better, how you are going to be someone who effectively wants the rewards we offer and thus is more likely to stick around for a long time, more likely to drive us in the right direction, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? That there's all sorts of benefits. Where you start is a tough question. And the answer is really just to start. Right? It is the same kind of journey any Zen master would tell you. It's the first foot. Take the first step. I'm a big believer that any good employer branding work begets more good employer branding work. Try a pilot project. Try to just honestly put some headlines on your job postings. And you're like, well, there's no field in my ATS for a headline. I'm like, no, there isn't. But if you write one sentence that encapsulates why someone should read more about this job posting. Think about you're a candidate, you're on Indeed, you're on LinkedIn, you're on a job board, StepStone, whatever. And you're like, I type in project manager and 14 trillion jobs pop up, all these logos you've never heard of. And you're like, why do you pick one? How do you pick one? Well, obviously the employer brand is the answer. If you like that brand, you click on that one first. Mm-hmm. Beyond that, if they start to say something interesting, you're like, oh, wait, there's a headline there. It says, this is the job that will change your life, or something actually better copywritten because I'm not a copywriter. And you click on it. The headline's job is not to say, this is why you should take this job. The headline's job is to say, this is why you should read the first paragraph. And the first paragraph's job is to explain what you're getting into and make you want to read the second paragraph. And the second paragraph's job is to talk about why the team is so interesting and why you should read the third paragraph and why you should read the bulleted lists. We write job postings as if we are angry at people. We don't like candidates. We're actively rejecting them and saying, you do not want part of this, their son. You don't want to pay any part of this. And it's like, I don't get it. And if you marketed cars the same way we marketed jobs, it would say, is car, has wheels, this is the thickness of the steel. Like, oh, I'm going to buy that car. Like they're technical specs masquerading as marketing, and it's just junk. If you write a headline for every single job posting that is interesting, true about your company, and makes me want to read a little bit more, put it on the top of every one of your job postings. Put little HTML header tags around them. That's all it takes. Header 2. That's all I'm going to say. Google H2. That's all you got to do. It will literally take you 3 seconds to learn how to do this thing. And it will make your headline look like a headline. Do that and see what happens. Do that and see how it changes people. Now, the problem with that is, of course, it'll drive more applications, and you don't actually want more applications. You want better applications, but this is the start. This is the beginning of that journey. And when you do it, you go, wow, just this stupid headline thing that this bald guy suggested on a podcast that one time, it worked. What else does he say to do? I don't know. Write more paragraphs about why people like working here. Ask people what they tell their friends about the company. Make little quotes and put them on LinkedIn. When you're on LinkedIn, don't think about, hey, how do I get people to apply for a job? Think, how do I get people to be interested in my company? Just change your mindset ever so, just a tiny little bit, and it will make a huge impact. Like I did a huge study earlier this year where I looked at 1,200 I'm sorry, it was like 1,200 LinkedIn posts from more than 100 companies. And I said, this is what everybody's doing wrong. And it's the same old stuff. Help wanted, join us, we're hiring. So we got all these posts that just simply say we're hiring. And you're like, wait a second, that's not a compelling reason for me, because all you're telling me is that you're hiring. I don't know anything about you. I don't know why I'm joining you. I don't know what you're offering me. The reason I'm applying is simply because you have an open role. Put that way, do you actually want to hire that person? Of course you don't. So stop writing them that way. We're posting these things. Hey, we won this award. Good bully for you. I mean, who cares? Tell me why. Tell me what makes you interesting. Tell me what makes you deserve that award. We're a wonderful place to work, which is places, we do workplaces good, right? That's the name of my fake award that I use, because I can't say the one that, because I don't want to, pay. I don't want to help them. You won an award, but now instead of saying we won this award, yay, we good, instead say we won this award because we care about X and Y and Z. We reward X, Y, and Z, and it's clear that our employees agree. That is why we won this award. That is information that makes me go, oh, this is an interesting company. And I joke, so I teach employer branding. I joke that 99% of my job as an employer brander is to make a complete and total stranger do this. I didn't know that. That's really interesting. I think I want to learn more. That's the whole job, right? If I can make a stranger do that, I win. I've done it what I'm supposed to do, right? I don't have to force feed like a duck turned into foie gras all the reasons why you should want to work for me. All I want to make you do is go, that's interesting. Because the second you find it interesting, you're off on your own path and you're going to figure it out on your own, right? I don't want to inject it into you. I want you to want that thing. I want you to want to learn about us, and I'm done. I win. I'm the best, right? That's, you want to take your tiny little victory lap, because that's all it is about. So as a small brand, do something. See the value of what you're doing, and then double down. Do a little more. Everybody's path is going to be this different, but the act of doing it leads to more thought, leads to more action, leads to more impact.
Amazing, brilliant. If anybody takes anything from today, then stop writing your job adverts like you hate your candidates. I think is quote of the day.
It's clearly very
But the
early.
thing is, it's so true.
Yeah.
But the problem is, I've never had it described to me like that. But it is absolutely true, right? When
Yeah.
you say it is so transactional, so functional, and you're right. It's like a technical spec, right? It
You
is
will
not a
have this
reason to.
skill. You will do these things. You will. I mean, you want to make a really unpleasant joke. You do it in a real German accent, because that's the really most exciting way of making people feel loved. Like, you will have these things. You will have these skills. You're like, why do you not like the candidates? It's really rough.
All that is absolutely brilliant, James. I also understand that I'm going to give you, not you haven't done enough self promotion, but a little bit more self promotion. There's you've got a book coming out pretty soon, in the next kind of month or so. Would you want to kind of talk us through that? Tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. It's cleverly titled "Employer Branding for Small Business." It's very, I dug deep.
What else?
I dug really deep, right? I went right. No, it's purely look. This is this thing. I've done a previous book. I've done Talent Chooses You, which is available on Amazon, or you can buy it or get it for free. I have it online for free all over the place. This is something where I said, rather than talk theoretically, how do I help a small business kind of say exactly the question you asked? What's the first step? What's the second step? What's the third step? And I kind of said, here are the 12 skills or the 10 skills you probably should think about. And this is the way you put them in order, so that in 12 weeks, you go left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. And at the end of 12 weeks, you're actually activating your brand. You're actually doing good work. You're seeing your results. Your bosses are understanding why you're spending an hour or two every week kind of grinding through Glassdoor review responses and job postings, and coming up with headlines and putting the headlines on the career site and changing and adjusting ever so slightly how you're posting things on LinkedIn, right? That stuff is the super powerful stuff. And walking people through how to do that, because again, I do believe that once you start doing it, you start to realize all the opportunity you have in front of you. And I want people to take those opportunities. Employer branding is so big that there is no such thing as a book that captures all of it. It's not possible. But if I can get small businesses excited to realize this is an audience I don't speak to very well, it's not that hard to do great work. It's not expensive at all to do great work, right? I don't ask anybody to spend a penny on tech stacks or tools or anything like that. It's just talk about why people should want to be there. get them, have that moment where they go, huh, that's really interesting. I want to learn more. And that's what it is. And once you do that, you're on the path and you just want to keep doing it. So the book will be coming out this spring. I don't have an actual date. It just finished getting proofed yesterday. Proving. It's not a loaf of bread. It's a book. It's just getting finished proofed. Too much British baking show. And it's now I have to start laying it out and getting it ready. So it is going to happen in the next month or two. Hopefully, it shouldn't be a problem, but that's really the plan for that.
That's brilliant. So for anyone listening, once it's available, James will reach out to me. I will let everybody know, and we'll kind of update the kind of show notes. We will also include all of James's kind of details on the show notes. So anybody who wants to know more or going to go in contact with him, connect with him on LinkedIn, it's all going to be there as well. James, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. It's been fascinating. I'm sure we'll have you back again at some point in the future. But for now, thank you very much.
That would be amazing. This has been an absolute blast, James. We'll start our own show, the James and James Show. That'll be.
I mean, it almost I can see it. It writes itself,
It
right?
really does. It really does. I'm mentally designing the logo as we speak.